It's even worse, I think, for the series, because quality-wise, it's always been up and down. Maybe the concept of the series is interesting, but then they don't really nail the ending. Or maybe the stakes are just completely all over the place and you don't really know about what you're supposed to care about at the end of the day.
What is the ending you propose? Get back to the show. See you on the big screen.
Really?
No.
No! God, please, no! No!
Welcome back to Torn Apart, and today we're talking about a new Disney Plus MCU show. The only one of the two that we're getting this year, because we're only getting Secret Invasion and Loki Season 2. Kind of weird, right? But I feel like they're slowing it down for very good reasons, mostly because they're very talented special effects artists are literally dying right now, and also because we're getting a bit fatigued, right? I mean, do you even remember the last MCU project that got you really excited? Not counting, of course, Guardians of the Galaxy. Don't really think so, right?
Quill.
No!
Quill.
I'm not gonna lose him.
He's gone.
I'm not letting him go!
Stop it, please! I beg you!
So this is gonna be yet another video where basically I look at the pilot of the TV show Secret Invasion this time around and try to guess where it's heading, whether it's worth your time as an MCU fan or just as a normal person standing in the middle of the street. Let's get down to business and get rid of the stuff that is not really that interesting but is useful to know. For example, the show is created by Kyle Bradstreet and it's gonna be 6 episodes long, and all of them are gonna be directed by Ali Salim. Of course, they're gonna be coming out on a weekly basis like all of the other MCU shows, and we don't really know the titles yet, so we don't really know what to expect. But I've been following a couple of interviews and backstories about this show, and one thing that we can say for sure is that it's not gonna be following the Secret Invasion comic book storyline, and it makes a lot of sense because Secret Invasion is kind of like a huge mess when it comes to how many different superheroes are supposed to be there. It's kind of like a smaller scale Infinity War at the end of the day, and I'm kind of glad that they're trying to change it a little bit and focus a bit more on the political / conspiracy part of the story instead of focusing on like a weird cameo fest that they've basically been trying to recreate since Spider-Man No Way Home.
I know you can't wait to see Wong. I get it. I just want to make sure that you don't think this is one of those cameo every week type of shows. Just remember whose show this actually is.
We're kind of tired of that, right? I want to see some original stuff. I actually want to experience what it feels like to be in a specific universe, in a specific story. The stakes have to change from movie to movie, and I'm kind of tired of also seeing the same faces with no character development at all. And it's actually something I'm gonna be addressing when it comes to this episode, because we've got the same syndrome here, where basically it focuses on characters that we know, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really give them anything interesting to do, and it gives you new characters and he doesn't have the time to explore them, because at the same time they're not these big A-list stars that we've known for almost 10 years. So the show itself doesn't really want to give the space or the time to new faces to shine at the end of the day and take control of the series as they probably should, because I'm talking specifically about the actor who is playing the main villain, of course, who for the time being it seems to be very stereotypical. And of course I'm talking also about the character who is playing Gaia, who is Talos' daughter, who has grown up since the first time that we saw her, so back in Captain Marvel, and she doesn't really have that much to do once again. It really feels like everyone is really going through the motion of this conspiracy theory that they've built up since the very first minutes of the show, and we don't really take the time to actually explore the human aspect of it at the end of the day, or even the alien aspect. So let's actually start deconstructing this episode and figure out whether it's gonna be interesting or not.
One last fight.
The first few scenes we get, for example, Agent Ross, who is basically talking to this incredibly weird like conspiracy theory person that we're not really supposed to take seriously just because he seems incredibly nuts. But at the end of the day, this show is called Secret Invasion, so it's incredibly weird to start a scene like that with someone we're not really supposed to trust. And I saw it from a mile away that Ross was actually a Skrull in disguise. To be using that to force Nick Fury back on Earth, I mean, you've seen most of the MCU movies that came out since Endgame. There are a lot of way more dark stuff that has happened on Earth and that he should probably be involved with at the end of the day, so it's incredibly weird to have involved him for this specifically. Also, it really feels like he doesn't want to be there. I mean, they try to address it a little bit within this series, and it's kind of like why this series I feel like it's not gonna work as well as other ones, because it kind of feels like it's kind of falling in the trap of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., meaning that it has to fill in a lot of narrative gaps that have not been explored for a really long time. And the Skrull chapter of the MCU has not been explored in almost any other movie but Captain Marvel, and I think you can really feel it here. You've got characters who are like saying things like, we've been developing the relationship with the Skrulls for 30 years, you don't understand this, you don't understand that, but it's not what we feel as an audience, and it's not something that they actually earned and developed within other stories, so it really sucks. Just to give you a reminder, the last time that we saw the Skrulls, specifically Talos for example, was in a post-credits scene in Spider-Man No Way Home, and that was back in 2019. So that was the last time that we saw Skrulls, if I'm not mistaken. Specifically, Skrulls were actually main characters. I'm not talking about Skrulls that are just lingering in the background or something like that. And the worst thing is that they were not even the main characters of that movie, because it was just revealed that they were Skrulls by the very end of the movie in a post-credit scene.
The little boy handled it. We helped.
Talos.
Come off it. How was I supposed to know that the whole thing was fake? I mean, that was all very convincing, you know, the performances, the illusion, that costume, the craftsmanship in that. I mean, this is just embarrassing for a shapeshifter. Fine.
Meaning that we still haven't had a single movie slash TV show where the Skrulls are the main characters besides Captain Marvel, which came out a really long time ago and was also taking place in the 90s and was very derivative at the end of the day. It didn't really fit perfectly within the MCU chronology as much as all of the other movies. Now we're supposed to care about the Rebel Skrulls. We're supposed to believe that Talos has been working with Nick Fury for such a long time and he's never had any doubts. It's incredibly weird. We're supposed to buy the fact that his wife has died mysteriously, because I don't think it's appearing actually in the episode itself or in any other MCU property. It's supposed to be like this incredibly like emotional moment, and it's one of the things that kind of forced Nick Fury as well to come back. I don't buy that. It's incredibly weird. It would have been incredibly easy to actually fix this. Imagine, for example, if the very first scene of this show was the death of his wife, for example, so that we anchor the show on like a strong emotional moment from the start, and we actually are looking at Talos as a point of view character instead of just a background character, because that's what he has been in the last 5 years at least. But no, instead they decided to do like a weird plot twist fake out using Ross and another Skrull that we don't really know and care about. This is the main problem with this series that I can see already, is that even though they're like presenting the Rebel Skrulls and they're presenting like new villains who are like kind of acting in this gray area, it's not black and white, it's complex and stuff like that. They're doing it for very like appropriate reasons at the end of the day. We don't really get to experience what it feels like to be with the Skrulls, and I feel like it would have been incredibly easy to just have an episode spent with them as a pilot, for example, and then to have a plot twist being like, oh, now actually we're terrorists, and then for Nick Fury to arrive, for example, at the end of the episode after we created like an emotional attachment to this new community of Skrulls. So it feels like the show is kind of like trying to do both at the same time. It's trying to make us catch up some lost time with Nick Fury, where we have no idea why he's left Earth for so long, and people are like, oh, he's been working on this super secret important project that is gonna defend Earth from space threats and stuff like that, the Saber project basically, and it's just stuff that is being told at us. It's not stuff that we feel, because in previous movies he literally said that he was on vacation, and that's how we believed it, like in a canonical way.
Oh my God! Wow!
and now they're trying to convince us that he's been depressed since the blip and that he doesn't really know like what his place is in the world anymore. And apparently the entire show is gonna be developing the Nick Fury character way more than previous movies, and he's not gonna treat him like as a cool character anymore, but as a real person. And you can see it from the very start. I mean, like, he doesn't really hide his scar anymore. He's limping most of the time. He's got like this huge beard, and he seems like he's just too old for this shit. Like classic, like Samuel Jackson stuff at the end of the day. So it makes him a very boring character as well. So we have to look at someone else. We look at Talos, for example, but as I said, there is no character development with him besides the relationship that they're trying to build with his daughter, a daughter that we never knew just because we knew her as a child. So we don't get attached to that relationship either. We just don't have the time to develop all of these things. The other person that we could get attached to is Maria Hill, who is a character that we've seen and known since probably like Avengers, so 2012 approximately. So she's been part of the MCU for a really long time, and it's actually kind of insane because she literally said in an interview, like the actress, that this is the most amount of range that she's been given within the MCU to actually like explore the character of Maria Hill. But spoiler alert, she dies at the very beginning of this show at the end of this pilot. And I was looking through different Marvel wikis and stuff like that, and they listed her character as deceased.
Nobody asked for your help, but Trace! You wasn't ready!
There's not gonna be a plot twist where like she's gonna come back at some point in the story. It really feels like from our perspective that she died there, and I didn't care at all. And it's insane. If you think about it, to have a character that has been there on our screen for more than 10 years, way more than 10 years, and to not care at all about her fate. Even if it's a fake out death, it doesn't really matter because I didn't care about the way that she died, and I didn't really feel the betrayal that she did because we know that the Skrulls like imitate each other. So these people should be way more clever than they are when it comes to trying to find like a system to figure out whether the person in front of you is a Skrull or a normal person. Like, these people are actually bad spies, and you cannot start like a show, a Secret Invasion show specifically, about people who are really bad spies. There is a moment, for example, where it's the three of them who have to look at Gaia. It's the only thing that they have to do, just look at Gaia as she's trying to deliver the different backpacks with the bombs inside, and God knows why the three of them lose sight of her, and she has the time to give the bombs to decoys who start running around, and the bombs end up basically exploding at the end of the day. It's the stupidest thing ever. These are our main characters, just to let you know. We've got a really old character who's literally too old for this shit. We've got Talos, who we don't really have the time to get to know him because, as I said before, it's been almost 30 years that this guy has been living on Earth, and we haven't seen any of that. And Maria Hill, who has always been a one sentence on a white sheet kind of character, and it's kind of a shame. They introduce some other characters. We see, for example, Don Cheadle's War Machine, who's talking to the president and stuff like that, but we've never really cared that much about Don Cheadle, especially when he's not associated with Tony Stark. We get a new character whose name is Sonya, who is working for the MI6, for example, and we don't really know why she's supposed to be there. She's just adding yet another piece of the puzzle of kind of like cliche 80s style espionage movies and TV shows. This is the main critique that I have actually about this pilot, and it's probably gonna be the same critique I have for the entire show. It's just relying on cliches, one after the other. The main mission of the Skrulls, of the Rebel Skrulls, is to bomb like certain places using like dirty bombs and try to create tension in between the US and Russia. That's something that we've been doing for like 40 years. It's insane. How could you actually write plot like that? It's so incredibly stupid. Like, it feels like it's been written by like ChatGPT or like a child, because there is no way that with like the incredible amount of creativity that you have at Marvel, that the only thing that you could think about espionage wise has to deal with Russia versus the US once again. When it comes to the villain, as I said before, we've got Gravik, who is the leader of these new Skrulls, and he looks like a bad guy, and most of the way that he acts and most of his plans kind of like reminds me of the Flag Smashers from like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the incredibly like underwhelming underwhelming series that we got like a couple of years ago, it feels exactly the same. I really don't understand why they're not trying to actually make this show interesting, because for the time being, I don't care about anything going on. It's not setting up interesting stakes, because I'm kind of done with like almost apocalyptic stakes when it comes to the MCU. Why don't you make it more personal? It's way more interesting. And maybe pick a side. Either show us what the Skrulls are doing and try to make us understand why they're rebels and why they're fighting for what they're fighting, or just show us the human side, for example. But don't do mediocre parts of each, because that's just incredibly stupid. Anyways, I feel like this was a rant, right? Because I honestly have nothing positive to say about this. I do have maybe one thing, which is the title sequence at the beginning, which, funny enough, was created by AI apparently. I'm pretty sure it was probably manipulated by special effects artists as well, but it's the only cool, impressive thing about it, and it's very often the case when it comes to MCU Disney Plus shows. The title sequences are really fun and really good, and I kind of wish that they put more money into the actual show and less money into the title sequence. Maybe think about that, Marvel. But that is basically it when it comes to this new episode of Secret Invasion. I honestly don't recommend this series for the time being. I might come back and give you an actual review at some point, but by using my own MCU geeky powers, I can probably tell you that this is gonna be quite underwhelming, it's gonna be quite boring, and at the end of the day, it's gonna be a disappointment. If it's not a disappointment, I will probably just apologize, go on Twitter and start typing, I was sorry, I was so wrong, but it honestly never happens. Like, if I look back at all of the other videos that I've made within this series here, I was almost 100% right when it came to building up the expectations of everything that was supposed to come right after. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments what you thought of the first episode of Secret Invasion, if you're gonna watch it, if you have other interesting like Easter eggs that you've noticed because you've read the comic quite recently as well. Let me know, because I'd be really interested. If you like this video, you're probably gonna like what I made last week, which was a video called Summer at the Movies. It's something that I do every single year, where I basically try to give you a glimpse of all of the films and all of the TV shows that I've watched and that I recommend, or that sometimes I don't recommend at all and I just tell you to avoid them. And I always try to keep it interesting and not look only at blockbusters. I like to look at some indie stuff, and I feel like the theme for this year was biopics. So go give it a watch. Anyways, don't forget to like and subscribe. Every single like that you drop will go to the memory of Maria Hill and the poor actress who plays her, who hasn't done really anything interesting since the How I Met Your Mother days, and it's kind of a shame, because I feel like her character definitely has potential and it's being wasted over and over again. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Everybody back to work! Got my shoes!
Da 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 da